Don't worry. It is not as big a freak out as people are making it. Okay, you've decided to buy a house here in Los Angeles. The first step of the process is to get pre-approved for a mortgage unless you are paying cash. Now, you want to work with a lender who has a good reputation, who delivers on time, and is great and competitive with their rates. Once you have your pre-approval letter, now it's time to interview agents. I recommend interviewing the agents that you're going to work with because you want to make sure that, first of all, you like the person because you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person. You want to make sure that they have the experience and the knowledge that you need to make this transaction as smooth as possible. Buying a home is a very complicated process, especially in California. So you want to make sure that the person you're working with is very knowledgeable. I've been in the industry for 22 years. And I've sold hundreds of homes. I've seen all types of scenarios, and I have a really good network of people that I can refer you to that will make this transaction as smooth as possible. Once you have decided which agent you want to work with, you're going to sign a buyer brokerage agreement and negotiate the percentage paid for the buyer's agent. Again, I'm flexible on my commission because I want to make sure that you get the house that you want. And in my experience, most of the sellers are paying for a buyer's agent commission. That's not going to be in every scenario, but we can address those scenarios as they come up. Once you've chosen your agent, I always like to do a buyer consultation with my buyers I'm working with for the first time. We'll set up a Zoom and we'll go over your goals in depth. What kind of house you want, what kind of area you want. Your must-haves and your wish list are really good things to bring to this meeting because then you help the agent understand what you need. Also, I like to talk about long-term goals too. Typically, a buyer is going to hold on to this property between 5 and 7 years, and eventually they're going to sell it, and I want to help sell it down the road. So I always talk about resale value anytime I'm working with a buyer. I also like to talk about sold statistics when I'm working with a buyer for the first time. This helps us get on the same page. You get to see what has sold with your exact criteria. Are there price reductions? Are there more negotiating? Or are things selling above their asking price? This helps us get on the same page so when we find a property that we do like, we know how to approach it. I've updated my 2025 buyer's guide. It's in the link down below in the description. Just click on that link and I'll email you over a free copy of this guide. It's a lot of information that I'm going to go over. So if you want to see it written, this is a perfect opportunity. Just click on there and download it. So now that that is all done, we start looking at properties. Once we find a property that we like and we want to submit an offer on it, I'm going to do research on the comparable sales to make sure that what we're offering is working with the market, meaning we're not overpaying for a property or we're not offering too little and get outbid. This is an important part of the process because we want to make sure that what we're paying for is worth what we're paying. Now, in an offer situation, you're going to have the actual purchase agreement. You're going to have your proof of funds. So if you have a down payment of $200,000, you need to show bank statements of $200,000 to show that you have the proof of funds ready to go for that down payment. And then you're also going to have a pre-approval letter, which is why that is the first step of the process. You do not want to start the home buying process without getting that pre-approval letter and doing a buyer consultation first. Once the seller has reviewed our offer, they'll either accept it, reject it, or counter it. And once we get an accepted offer, what we're going to do is we're going to open up escrow. That means that you will need to wire in your earnest money deposit. Now, this earnest money deposit is typically 3% of your sales price here in California, and you will wire in those funds directly into an escrow company. The escrow is a neutral third-party company that deals with all the finances, and they coordinate with the title company and make sure that everything is prorated based on the date of ownership. They figure out the taxes. They figure out all the loan information. They are the party that all of the accounting goes through. Now, when you wire in your funds, you want to make sure that you verify the wiring instructions because wire fraud, it happens all the time. And if you wire something into an account, you will never see it again unless it's the right account. So always make sure that you double check your wiring instructions before you wire any kind of money, especially money in this amount. Now that we've opened up escrow, the next step is to do our inspections. Now, there are 5 inspections I generally recommend for every single buyer, depending on the property. First of all is the general home inspection. This will go through the entire property and make sure that there's any issues there. Then they'll refer you to a specialist if they do find something. The sewer is definitely a must. A lot of these homes are 100 years old, and sometimes those sewer lines are also 100 years old. So you want to make sure that you do a sewer inspection. The termite inspection is an absolute must. We do have a lot of termites here in California, and you want to make sure that your house is not riddled with termites. and falling down. The foundation is a absolute must. A lot of these homes, like I said, are 100 years old. You want to make sure the foundation is absolutely in great shape because we also have earthquakes here in California. So all of these are really important. The last one is a chimney inspection if the house has a fireplace. Now, you can do as many inspections as you want to pay for. If you're on hillside construction, I would also recommend doing a survey or environmental study or a structural engineer to come and make sure the house is stable and the land that you're on is stable. Once we get our inspections back, we do what's called request for repairs. Now, this is where you get to negotiate with your seller for those repairs that you found in the general home inspection. In the last 4 transactions I worked with buyers, I was able to negotiate a substantial amount from each of those. One was $20,000, one was $25,000 plus an extra $20,000 in closing costs, and a third one was $30,000 off. These are all things that you should negotiate during a repair request because you want to make sure the house is in great shape. Now, some sellers are going to say absolutely not. They'll cancel and put it back on the market, but you have the right to say yes or no if they say, no, we're not going to do any repairs. You will also get your full earnest money back if you're within your inspection period. So don't worry about your earnest money as long as you're in your inspection period. Once you guys have come to terms with all of the repairs, you're going to also review disclosures from the sellers. These are property specific disclosures. So if they had a leak in 2018, they'll mark that. And then you will see everything that has happened with that property specifically. Also during this period, if you're buying a condo, you will get to review the HOA rules and restrictions of the community and their budget. If they have absolutely no money for repairs, you might want to pass on that. And that happens during the inspection period and the review period for all of those disclosures. So make sure that you read everything. I know it's a lot, but make sure you read it because it is important. While you're getting all the disclosures approved and the repairs approved, the lender is going to be working behind the scenes to order the appraisal and do their underwriting on their file. Now, the appraisal is a really important contingency in this contract. It is the thing that guarantees that you're not overpaying for a property. For example, if a property appraises, let's say it's $1 million is the contract value. Let's say it appraises at $930,000. That means that it's not worth what you're paying for it. So there's 4 options when an appraisal does not appraise. You can cancel and get your earnest money back. You can ask the seller to pay the appraised value, so lower the price to the appraised value. The third option is you can pay the difference from $930,000 to $1 million. So you come up an extra $70,000 on top of your down payment, or you can meet in the middle. You can reduce a little bit, the seller can reduce, and the buyer can pay up the difference. The fifth option is to rebuttal the appraisal. In my experience, that doesn't happen very often, that they actually will change the appraisal price, but it does happen once in a while, so it's worth trying. The other major contingency that we have in our contract is the loan contingency. This states that you need to get a loan to buy this property, and if you can't get a loan for some reason, then you can cancel and get your full earnest money back. That's why it's so important to work with a lender that you trust, that knows what he's doing, because you don't want to get into the process and spend money on inspections and get your hopes up just to find out that, oh, they didn't check one document and you're not able to get a loan anymore. That is the most devastating thing that can happen to a buyer, is not getting approved for a loan that they thought they could. And once you have cleared all of your contingencies, then the next step of the process is the closing disclosure. Your lender is going to send out a closing disclosure. This is basically matching what they originally quoted you when you first applied for the loan. If there's any differences, they have to adjust those differences to make sure that they match. Then once you've signed that, you have to legally wait 3 days before you can sign your loan documents. Now, your loan documents have everything in them that relate to the mortgage on the property. So late fees, how the foreclosure process works, and the amortization schedule over the last 30 years. It's a little scary to see how much interest you pay over the life of a loan. So if you can pay down that loan any faster, you're going to save a lot of money on interest. But that's a whole nother video. We'll talk about that another time. After you sign your loan documents, you're going to do a walkthrough on the property to make sure that it is in the same condition that we first saw it, or that they have done the repairs that they said that they were going to do. Once you've signed off on that, you're going to wire in the rest of your down payment. Again, before you wire anything, you want to make sure that it's the correct wiring instructions. You don't want to wire it to another place. And once the escrow officer has received your funds, the lender's funds, so the loan, they're going to release the deed to get recorded at the county. Now, that usually takes about 48 hours before it's recorded at the county. And once it's recorded, then you are the new official owner of the house. That is a ton of information that I just threw at you. So again, I have a free buyer's guide that is down below. Just click on that link. I'll email you over the free buyer's guide. It'll outline everything I just explained in a little bit more detail. So if you need any help, download that guide, or you can call me at 213-268-6832. My name is Felipe Crook, investing in your dreams.